Hello and welcome to Agriland's Dairy Podcast, The Dairy Trail. I'm Hugh Harney, Technical Dairy Specialist for Agriland, and over the last few weeks I've been going out to different farms across the country to see what was going on during the busy period. In this week's episode we take a trip to Kiltegan, County Wicklow, where the Hanbidges hope to be milking 130 Montbeliardes at peak this spring. Linda Hanbidge talks about her farm partnership arrangement with her brother Gordon and her parents. She also talks about how the autumn and spring calving split suits their system, before she gets into the nit and grit of the procedures around calving, grazing and nutrient spreading. So we're joined now with dairy farmer Linda Hanbidge. We're out in Kiltegan, County Wicklow. Linda, before we kind of get into talking protocols around calving and kind of getting cows out to grass and that kind of stuff around this time of the year, because there's a lot going on in the farm and we could be here all day talking about the stuff that you have to get through. But I suppose before we get into that, do you want to just give us a bit of a background to the farm? You're obviously farming in partnership with your parents and your brother Gordon, so maybe just touch on that as well.
Yeah, I am farming here since 2011. I came home, we had 55 cows. Daddy was milking 55 cows and he had a few sheep. And then with the abolition of quotas, I suppose we decided that we would increase, and we were lucky enough that we got to naturally increase because we had a great go of Montbeliarde heifer calves calved down. So in 2015, we went from 55 cows to 96 in the parlour. So we've done some expansion and some increase in the last sort of 10 years. In 15, we built a new milking parlour. And then in 17 we put in a new cubicle house. We put in an extra 79 cubicles. So it's been a busy 10 years, a big time of increase and change. And even I got married and had two girls in that time as well. So you were busy. Yeah, it's been a busy time. So Gordon was working off farm some of the time. He's more full time now. We're at about 130 you'll calve down this year. So that's kind of the highest we've been at.
Okay.
But the Montbeliardes are doing it for us. I suppose they're staying strong and they've made it easy for us to expand. So we've been lucky that way.
And just talk us then about the expansion and I suppose kind of forming that farm partnership, because the biggest thing around the farm partnership is getting that conversation going and making sure every party in the partnership is happy and is happy with how things work. So maybe with the farm partnership, you were converting, putting in a new parlour, there's a new cubicle shed, and we're in the calf shed here. There's automatic calf feeder, so there has been a lot going on. So maybe just talk us through that and how it has worked with your parents and with Gordon.
Well, when I came home, I said to Gordon, I knew myself I didn't want to farm on my own. Daddy had been on his own here for years and he'd had Mam with him, but it was just themselves. And there hadn't been a workman here since about 93, I think.
Okay.
I said to Gordon I didn't want to do it on my own. And in fairness, Gordon said he didn't really want to farm like Dad had on his own either. So then the decision was whether or not we were going to be able to do it together. When we decided we would, I suppose the two of us have a very good work ethic and we have a very similar work ethic, but we both have very different skill sets.
Yes.
I suppose I like the cow side of things. I like the paperwork side of things. Gordon is very much a machinery person. He's a maintenance lad. He's great with cow diet and watching that kind of thing. And he's great with facts and figures. He's ahead for that I wouldn't. And we complement each other very well in that way. And then we have the advantage of having Daddy there with years of experience.
Old mind.
And he's always there to kind of steer us in the right direction. And it has worked very well. I've been very lucky that, like I said, I had two girls and I had the two lads to fall back on. I was able to take the time to have my babies and mind my girls and stuff like that. So it's a great team effort.
Yeah.
And people say to us, they often say, do you not argue? And is there not wigs on the green all the time? And honestly, my dad doesn't believe in fighting. He doesn't believe in shouting and roaring in the parlour. And Gordon and I we just don't. I would be a big come on, tell me what are we going to do? And we would do a lot of talking and there's a lot of text messaging back and forth. And did you see this? And what about that? And that's kind of how it works. But it genuinely does work.
Yeah.
Really
so
well.
It's all of you put together that actually makes the farm tick.
Yeah.
And I suppose your father then, Alan, he's obviously been a big advocate for the Montbeliarde. So maybe just kind of touch on that for a bit, because am I right in saying 1993?
That's correct.
Yes, 1993, and I suppose you were one of the first to kind of have that fully Montbeliarde herd. So just tell us how it fits into the system and how you've been finding it yourself, even for, getting that cow fed and getting the returns in milk solids and litres, I suppose.
Yeah. Daddy started, like you said, Daddy started in 93, and basically he had a terrible run of 4-to-1 bull calves, and he went out looking for something that would give him a valued bull calf.
Okay.
And he found that British Friesians were going down a very Holsteiny route, and they were getting just that taller, more milky, less strength type cow.
Yeah.
And he was looking for something that had put a bit of strength back into them. So he seen an ad for Montbeliardes. He bought a couple of heifers, and he kept them for a few years and to see how they went. The one thing that he noticed first was they don't peak to the same extent. They kind of tend to come up to 25, 30 litres and then flatline and carry on. And then you have that consistency throughout the lactation, which we find to be a really great lactation or a really great advantage.
Yeah.
Other than that, then we also have a fantastic valued bull calf. Daddy has put every breed of bull on the cows. They've had Charlies, they've had Belgian Blues, they've had Limousines, they've had the lot. They always calve them down with nearly next to no problems at all. We were here for years, and I didn't even know we had a calving jack, never mind use it. Do you know?
Yeah.
And then when it comes to them in the parlour and stuff like that, our herd would be a very placid herd. You were out with them yourself.
That's right, yeah.
They just kind of stand and look at you. They're nearly nosier more than anything else. They want to know what you're at.
Yes.
But they'd be fierce calm. And I mean, I milk the cows all the time. And my eldest brother is in Australia, and my dad and my mum go to see him generally in January, kind of every other year. So in the springtime, every other year, I'll milk the heifers when they come in. There's no bother that way. It's not like we're kick barring them or anything like that.
Yes, yeah.
They're fierce, easy going. And they suit us.
Yeah.
And then we have a cull cow at the end that's worth a bit of money too.
Yes, yeah.
I
suppose as well, in recent years, the Montbeliarde has kind of become more refined in terms of there's been more dairy traits kind of pumped into them. And I suppose there's probably better quality semen coming from the likes of France and stuff. So maybe like a couple of years ago, people might have thought, oh, well, the Montbeliarde, they're not a milking cow. Yeah. So maybe just talk us through that, this cow can actually do it in the parlour as well.
Yeah, well, there was an idea there that the cows were huge. Now, in fairness, historically the cows were huge.
Yeah.
And it was because they weren't being calved down until 3 years in France, and then that kind of came across to Ireland as well. And I mean, Daddy would have done the same. He would have had 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds running, and he had all sorts of batches of heifers.
Yeah.
But in the last 10 years, again, we have changed. We calve all our heifers down at 2 years old. They do need to be fed on. They do need to be grown. They do mature a little bit later, and you need to watch that. But you will calve them down at 2 years old. And I mean, the herd itself, like you said, they've been refined. They're much more directed towards that kind of dairy area. But our herd average would be about I suppose they're about 600, 650 kilos.
Really, yeah.
And I mean, I suppose we ourselves would have thought they were heavier. And then you bring them to the sales and stuff like that, and they pop them on the scales, and you're like, oh, they actually aren't these huge 650
kind of average in your herd, would they?
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever we sent, and I mean, we usually send them to the sales straight out of the parlour, and that's kind of the average of them,
Okay.
And
so like they are achieving that kind of kilo per body weight, so.
I mean, we had 500 kilos of solids this year.
Okay.
And we were happy enough with that because it wasn't a great year.
Yes, yeah.
We found that grass this year just didn't seem to have that bang in it that it should have.
Yes,
I mean, we were very lucky. We have a very dry farm, so we did have grass. So the wet summer kind of suited us. We grew lots of grass, but the quality in it wasn't there. The feeding in it wasn't there.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge in itself. But like the last couple of years have been difficult. So our solids have actually dropped with the last few years with the way the weather has been.
Yeah, very good. And I suppose, look, we'll get into a bit more about grass, because I suppose one thing you were saying to me about yourself and Gordon coming home, it was trying to get a bit more grass into the cow's diet, and I suppose that's kind of everyone kind of coming home from a kind of a traditional farm. But I suppose just before we get into that, Linda, do you want to just give us a kind of a protocol around kind of before the cow is in her transition period before calving, and when she calves down, what's the kind of procedure around getting kind of the calf out and getting colostrum into the calf?
Well, we have the dry cows are down, and they're checked every day, and you move them up when they're getting close to calving, obviously up into the calving box. When they calve down, like I said, they nearly always calve down on their own. They're very easy calved. and then we'll always try and get 2 to 3 litres in them in the first few hours.
Okay.
So we tend to either have fresh colostrum in the dairy, or we have it frozen. Always have a supply of stuff frozen there, and we'll defrost or use what's fresh and get that into them as quickly as we can. Then we have we always spray the navels. We found that it's so important to get that done, and it's probably something historically that we weren't very good at being as conscious of, or as conscious of doing it immediately. So we've concentrated a lot in the last few years just to try and avoid any of those swelled navels or any issues that way. And then after that, then they get brought over. We've got individual pens for the first few days. They're fed on a bottle and then moved on to a bucket, and then in the sort of 4 to 5 day stage, they get moved on to the automatic feeder.
Okay, and so talk us through then the automatic feeder. So obviously it's only in
since the autumn.
Since the autumn, okay. So, and just how do you find, even from a labour point of view, and like, believe it or not, we're actually standing in the calf shed here now. Normally when you're standing in the calf shed, there'll be a few calves bawling at you or looking for something. So like I'm looking at a calf here and she's curled up all happy. So like it's a huge thing. Yeah. So just in terms of labour and then in terms of the calf's health, how do you find it?
The calf feeder has worked out really, really well. I suppose I had said to you earlier on that I was nearly a bit against them. I was like, your calves maybe won't get looked at as often or minded as much, and you're afraid that maybe they get a bit ignored because the calf feeder is meant to be doing that, that kind of thing. But I suppose we're probably nearly, I was saying, like, we're nearly more conscious of them because we stand and look at how completely content they are. Calves lying off, happy out. We have a Holloman Law calf feeder that we got through Willie Allen, and it's working really, really well. We also have retrofitted section on to give them precision microbes as well.
Okay.
So we started using that this year. So it's all new for the calves.
Yes.
But they're all very settled and it's working really well. The precision microbes seems to be doing what it says on the tin, basically, which is basically that they'll have it. It gets the stomach, the gut going as it should, and calves are more settled and happier on their milk diet. And that definitely seems to be coming through in the calves. They are happy out.
Okay. And just then tell us, like, what the kind of procedure around breeding is, because it's all very relevant now with calves on the ground. So, like, obviously with the Montbeliarde, you still have a saleable calf.
Yes.
So what is the procedure around kind of dairy AI, and kind of, are you using a beef bull or beef straws? What way does that work, Linda?
So we usually, before we start to serve anything, we'll go through the cows, and the worst 10% are automatically marked that they're only going to get beef. We will then use all Montbeliardes in the first kind of 6 weeks.
Okay.
We get all of our Montbeliarde straws through Beausires, which is through Copex in France.
Yeah.
And Copex with Beausires are able to get a rep over, and he does a whole mating plan for us.
Okay.
That is hugely beneficial in that it kind of takes the hard work out of our breeding. We go through the catalogue, we choose the bulls that we like, and then we go through all the cows with Feriel from France, and he tells us kind of, he recommends which bulls on which cows, and it means it's all very simple when it comes to breeding. We have the list there in front of us and it's simple. So we've used a certain amount of sex semen. I was saying we've used some sex semen this year. It's worked out really well for us. We're really pleased with it. We've got a great bunch of heifer calves in nice and early, like you'd want them. And then we'll kind of breed the Montbeliardes for 6 to 8 weeks, depending on how we feel it's going. And then after that, we will use a certain amount of beef straws, and then we'll let the bulls in. So at the minute, we have a Limousin Belgian Blue Cross, 2 Limousin Belgian Blue Crosses, and we had an Aubrac last year who we sold. And the Aubracs were gorgeous actually, but he was gone old, so it was time to retire him. And then we have an Angus bull that we run with our heifers.
Yes.
So that's kind of the beef that we're using at the minute. We've used Herefords in the past as well. They're always gorgeous calves as well. We just don't have one at the minute. But that's what we have. Brilliant.
Yeah, and I suppose, do you keep on any calves on the farm, or is it just strictly heifers for?
No, we don't keep any beef calves. We don't have the room for them really. We have our calves and even our heifer calves are contract reared. They're on like a summer grazing contract, so we'll wean them off milk and then they'll go down to a contract rearer down in Kilkenny, and he'll keep them for the summertime, and it basically frees up ground for us to have for the cows, and in our opinion, it means that the calves are minded, they get the right grass at the right time, and they're been moved on and as they need to be. He can concentrate on them and streamline his system the same way we can with ours with the milking cows.
Brilliant, yeah. So it works well for everyone in that sense. I suppose then we'll just kind of move on to the dietary requirements of the cow, Linda. So I suppose getting the cow out to grass was obviously a huge thing for you this spring. You were saying that you had them out from 13th of February, am I right in saying?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so just maybe talk us through that. Are the cows, if they're freshly calved, are they kept in a freshly calved group and put on silage and kind of gradually put onto concentrates? Or are they straight out to grass, or what way does it work, Linda?
No, when they're up in the calving box ready to calve, they get kind of gradually put onto the milking diet there. So what they're fed there is a similar diet to what the milking cows are on. And then when they come into the parlour, then we have a feed to yield system in the parlour, so it'll gradually build up their concentrates. And when we get them out to grass, they're straight out to grass. So when they calve, they go out to grass. But I mean, we're only out for a few hours in the day at the minute.
Okay.
So they're usually out from kind of morning milking till lunchtime. Yesterday now, because the day was lovely, they were out all day and they came in for milking.
Okay.
But then they're still in at night, so they're still getting their silage at the head rail as well. They're still getting their diet.
Yeah.
So they're getting kind of a nice mix of everything.
Okay. Yeah. And I suppose is the Montbeliarde, do you find in towards your British Frisian type animal, or your kind of your crossbred type animal, which we see a lot of across the country, do they require that bit more feed? Is it just enough to say, okay, well, a few kilos of meal and a bit of grass? Is there a bit more that you have to give that animal?
There is a bit more to them. We'd always say they don't milk off their back.
Yeah.
The Montbeliarde will take care of herself first.
Okay.
Which I suppose I see it as an advantage.
Yeah.
But because we're winter milk producers, so I suppose we would be feeders as such.
Yes, yeah.
And they are coming, like our autumn cows will be on a very good diet in the wintertime. They've got their maize and their soya and their beet and straw, and like we have a diet feeder there, and we put a good mix in, and that stays until the cows are out to grass full time.
Okay.
So it's just reduced according to how much grass they're getting, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, Linda, you were saying there that you've your winter milking, and obviously so you've a cohort of cows calving down in the autumn time. Maybe just talk us through that contract and kind of the diet of the cow at that time of the year.
Yeah, we have about a third of our cows calve down in the wintertime. So we have a block from early October till early December. We've quite a tight block of them calving down. Daddy has always had he's a liquid contract and has done the whole time he's been milking cows. And it's something that we all kind of like milking in the wintertime, and it's something we've always enjoyed.
Yeah.
Daddy would always tell you he prefers milking in the wintertime because the cows are in the cubicle house. You're able to walk them up and you can milk away and you control their diet and it's set. So
you don't have the fluctuation of grass.
Fluctuation of grass changing and stuff like that. And you test your silage and you know what you have there and you know what you're putting into them, and then you know what you should be getting back out of them.
Yeah.
The cows are getting about 20 to 22 kilos of dry matter in the wintertime, and then that diet is made up of silage, maize, beet, straw, soya, and then there's some concentrates going in there as well, which would have all their minerals and everything that they need. Gordon would, the first few weeks in, is always kind of, it's a chopping and changing and trying to see what they're eating, but generally they settle down at about the 22 kilos of dry matter.
Yeah, very good, very good. Linda, I suppose winter milking is somewhat of a dying trade, and like we're winter milking at home ourselves, but like, you know, maybe going home in the future, I might say, is that something we're going to continue on?
Yeah.
So I suppose for yourselves is, you know, because with the costs involved, it can be an expensive way of milking cows.
Yeah.
So is that something that you want to continue on with, or does the Montbeliarde cow, does that suit that system, or is this system suiting yourselves?
The winter system is suiting us. We did look at it a few years ago and say, you know, is this where we should be, or should we be changing? And then there was an added bonus. We got an injection into the bonus there for the winter milk, which was needed. I mean, with the way inflation was gone, we were going to have to get a little bit more. But I think bottom line, we all enjoy milking in the wintertime. We all enjoy the winter feeding, and enjoy the regularity of it.
Yes.
It definitely suits the Montbeliarde.
Yeah.
They're good with routine. They're good with being fed well like that. And it definitely does suit them. I mean, the grazing is, they graze really well too. Like you said, the Montbeliarde has changed over the years. They do graze really well. They're a very versatile breed.
Okay.
And because of that, they suit our winter milk. But then when it comes to the springtime, we would also be quite stringent on our grass system as well. So we're trying to do a little bit of everything and try and do a little bit of everything as well as we can.
Yeah.
The winter suits us, and we enjoy it.
Very
And
good.
that's why we ended up sort of saying that we wanted to stay with it.
Yes, yeah. I suppose, Linda, you were saying that Gordon kind of looks after kind of the slurry and fertiliser application. Have you got out much slurry at the minute, or is that a question for Gordon more so?
Gordon has got some slurry out. He got it because we have a few of the cows out, so he got some slurry out on paddocks that the cows have grazed so far. I think he put out about 3,000 gallons to the acre.
Yeah.
And he went out with fertiliser there at the end of last week, and he got about half a bag out to the acre. So he has got some out. But he was waiting for that kind of the weather to warm up a little bit. I mean, it was still very cold here some days, so he was kind of holding off until it kind of improved that way, you know.
Yeah. Well, from the looks of things, like, yous all have your role on this farm, and yous all kind of work together really well. Everyone knows what they're doing and what's to be done on the farm.
Yeah, generally that is how it is. And like loads of people say to me, how does that work? And the main thing to make it work is communication. What are we doing today? How are we doing it? Are you okay to do that? I can't be here today. I need to go here. I have this. Can you do that? Like that's the backbone of the whole thing.
And allowing for it as well. Like, cause like if you want to go about something else, you're allowing for it, and Gordon's allowing for yourself to do it, and your parents likewise.
Absolutely. And I mean, like Daddy tries to tell us that he's semi-retired. He is semi-retired in that he takes off 6 weeks to go to Australia to see Niall and stuff. But when he's home here, Daddy's as full time as the rest of us.
Yeah.
Now he does get his weekends. That's his big treat from when he was here on his solo when he was here solo. But like Monday to Friday, Daddy's every bit part of the farm as any of the rest of us, and my mum is there to keep us all going, and she keeps most of us fed most of the time, and she's a great help with the girls. I could often ring her and be like, grab them girls there from school because I won't get to them, you know. So it's a huge team effort with all of us.
Yeah.
So.
Very good. And I suppose, Linda, just final question now. For the farm here in the future, for the farm partnership, what way is, you seem to have like the new cubicle shed, the parlour, the drafting unit, the automatic calf feeders, everything seems to be quite well aligned. So if for the future, is there any more expansion, or is it about consolidating what you have now?
Well, I don't think we'll expand on cow numbers anyway, because we're kind of the numbers we have, I think, is nearly as much as we'd be able to manage. In a dry summer, I don't know how well we'll manage our 130 cows. We'll have to see how that goes. Yeah. With regard to any more expansion or building or anything like that, Gordon always has a plan. Okay. He arrives in and he's like, here, I was thinking, and I always, or if I see him standing staring somewhere across the yard, I always know there's something coming when he comes over to me.
Something lingers.
Yeah, but there's bits and pieces, bits of a meal shed and machinery shed, and refine what we have as best we can.
Okay.
And sure, you know yourself, there's always maintenance and there's always bits to be improved, and that's all we can do really, is just keep rocking on as best we can. Yeah,
keep rocking on is right. Linda, I want to thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, and I want to wish yourself and your family, Gordon and Alan, the very best of luck for the rest of the calving season and the rest of the season in general, and just hopefully everyone stays safe and healthy. So thank you very much for coming on, Linda.
Great, thanks a million, Hugh.
So that's all for this week's episode of The Dairy Trail. I'd like to thank our guest Linda Hanbidge for giving up her precious time at this time of the year. And I want to wish the Hanbidges the best of luck for the rest of the calving season and the rest of the season ahead. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to rate and review or share the podcast with a friend or a fellow farmer. So that's all for season 1 of The Dairy Trail. Stay tuned to find out when we'll be back for season 2. We hope you enjoyed the podcast. Thanks very much for listening.